Why avoidants ghost their own emotions after a breakup. After a breakup, when an avoidant walks away from a relationship, most people assume they feel nothing, that they simply detach, move on, and forget. But that's the biggest misunderstanding about avoidance. They don't detach from you first. They detach from themselves. Their entire emotional system is designed around distance, protection, and internal shutdown. And after a breakup, this shutdown becomes even more intense. It's not that avoidants don't feel anything, it's that they're terrified of what they feel. At their core, avoidants experience emotions with twice the intensity, but half the ability to regulate them. So instead of leaning in, they ghost their own emotional reality. Avoidants grew up in environments where vulnerability wasn't safe, comfort wasn't consistent, and emotional needs were treated as problems. So as adults, whenever a breakup happens, their old childhood blueprint activates. They don't process emotions the way others do. They don't run to friends, talk things out, or find healthy outlets. Instead, they numb, distract, and retreat into self-preservation mode. This looks cold and detached on the outside, but internally it's chaos. Their nervous system interprets emotional closeness and emotional loss as a threat. So the moment the relationship ends, their system says, feel nothing. Shut it down, escape. They're not ghosting you. They're ghosting the storm inside their own chest. What's surprising is that avoidants don't even allow themselves to feel sadness immediately. They skip the first stages of grief completely. While most people feel shock, sadness, confusion, or longing, avoidants jump straight into emotional numbness. They convince themselves they're fine, they're better off, and this was the right choice. This narrative isn't confidence, it's survival. They tell themselves things like, I don't need anyone, this was too much drama, I'm better alone, or relationships just complicate my life. These thoughts are not truth. They're emotional insulation, a temporary wall that prevents them from feeling the collapse inside. After the breakup, avoidants often get busy. They pour themselves into work, hobbies, gym routines, or meaningless distractions. This isn't motivation, it's avoidance. They create noise so they don't have to hear themselves. Their internal rule is simple. If I don't sit still, I won't have to feel. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. Avoidants don't stay numb forever. Emotional shutdown is only a temporary defense. Once the initial danger, the intimacy, the closeness, the vulnerability disappears, the emotions they push down start creeping back up. Guilt, longing, regret, fear, relief, all tangled and all delayed. But by the time they finally feel the breakup, you've already lived through the hardest part. Avoidants ghost their emotions because they don't trust them. They've learned that emotions expose weaknesses, create expectations, and open doors to hurt. So rather than process what happened, they rationalize the breakup like a math equation. They itemize the relationship and focus on logistics rather than feelings. They think about what wasn't working, what made them uncomfortable, or how they felt pressured. They break down the relationship like a business deal instead of a loss. And for a while, this protects them. But for avoidance, logic is a thin blanket. Eventually, the warmth fades, and the cold truth reaches them. The most painful part for an avoidant isn't the breakup itself. It's the delayed emotional rebound. Weeks or even months later, when life quiets down, when no one is demanding closeness, when the pressure of intimacy is gone, they finally feel everything they ran from. This is when the memories hit. The soft moments, the comfort, the tiny rituals, the intimacy they didn't know how to accept. They start wondering, did I make a mistake? Why do I miss them now? Why does it feel heavier than it did before? It's confusing because avoidants believe they already processed the breakup, but in reality, they only postponed it. This delay is exactly why avoidants often come back unexpectedly. Not because they want a relationship necessarily, but because the emotions they ghosted finally catch up with them. The silence they use to escape their feelings becomes the silence that exposes them, and suddenly they crave what they once rejected. They seek connection without the pressure, closeness without responsibility, comfort without vulnerability. This creates a cycle: pursue, withdraw, detach, miss you, repeat. You think they moved on effortlessly, but the truth is, They just moved on temporarily. Another reason avoidants ghost their emotions is identity protection. Avoidants pride themselves on being strong, independent, and unbothered. Feeling heartbreak threatens that identity. Admitting they're hurt feels like failure. So they pretend not to feel anything, even to themselves. This is why avoidants rarely talk about their emotions or seek support. Vulnerability feels humiliating. Even when they're hurting, they'd rather suffer in silence than appear needy or weak. Their entire personality becomes a mask to cover the emotional wounds they never learned to heal. What outsiders don't see is that avoidants often carry deep loneliness after a breakup, not because they want constant closeness, but because they struggle to truly connect with anyone. They don't miss the chaos. They miss the emotional safety they didn't know how to receive. They miss the version of themselves they could have become if they weren't afraid. They miss the comfort of knowing someone cared, even if they didn't know how to show it. And deep down, they miss the parts of the relationship they didn't allow themselves to fully experience. Avoidants ghost their emotions because facing them means facing their past. It means admitting that their childhood shaped them. It means realizing their independence is a shield, not a strength. It means acknowledging that love terrifies them, not because they don't want it, but because they don't know what to do with it. Emotional intimacy requires surrender, and surrender feels like death to someone who survived emotional neglect by shutting down. But here's the truth that few people understand. Avoidants do feel deeply. They just feel alone. They experience emotions like an echo, delayed, distant, distorted. They don't process in real time. They process in hindsight, which means by the time they realize what they lost, the other person is already healing. And that's why avoidants often live with long-term regret that they never speak about. So the next time you wonder how an avoidant can walk away so easily, remember this. They didn't escape the emotions. They only postponed them. The silence they choose after the breakup is not peace, it's survival. And the emotional ghosting they do is not because they're heartless, it's because they are overwhelmed, unprepared, and terrified of the vulnerability that love demands. And as you finish this video, remember this. Avoidants aren't villains. They're people trapped in emotional survival mode. They ghost their own feelings not because they don't care, but because caring feels dangerous. And while that doesn't excuse the pain they cause, it helps you understand why their behavior is so confusing, so inconsistent, and so delayed. Your job isn't to fix someone who runs from their own heart. Your job is to protect yours. Healing means recognizing what is yours to carry and what was never your responsibility. If you found clarity in this video, share it with someone who needs the reminder. And if you're rebuilding your strength after loving an avoidant, keep watching, because strength isn't found in the person who couldn't choose you. It's found in the person you become after you choose yourself. See you in the next video.